So nobody believed that this was possible. Nobody thought that you could crash Bugatti, buy it back, and nonetheless fix it.
There is something about the Bugatti Chiron story that is making more and more people look at it in a different way. At first, it looks like just another case of a luxury car being bought, sold, and then later rebuilt after damage. But the deeper you go into it, the more it starts to feel like there is a much bigger story happening in the background. It is not just about one car or one accident. It is about people, decisions, control, and how rare machines move between private owners and factory-level authority. Right now, the rebuild of Bugatti Chiron is reaching its final stages under Mat Armstrong, and people are watching closely because it feels like this is not just the end of a repair project. It feels like the end of a long chain of events that started way before the crash ever happened. To understand why people are so interested, you have to go back to the beginning, before the damage, before the rebuild, before the car even became a YouTube project. There was a point where AlexG, also known online as FXAlexG, was trying to expand his collection of hypercars. He already owned multiple Bugattis, which already puts him in a very small group of people in the world. But even for someone at that level, the desire for something new does not stop. The target this time was another Bugatti, something even more rare and special. Everything on paper looked simple. He had the money, he had the connections, he had the history of ownership. From an outside view, it looked like just another high-end purchase waiting to happen. But as the story slowly unfolded, things were not as simple as they first appeared. The deal did not go through in the way most people expected. Instead of a smooth transaction, there were delays, discussions, and eventually a clear stop in the process. That moment is important, because it marks the first time the story moves from being just about money and cars into something more complicated. This is where people start to realize that in the world of ultra-luxury vehicles like Bugatti, ownership is not just about paying the price. It is also about approval, image, and how the brand sees its customers. And that idea becomes the foundation for everything that happens next. AlexG was already known in the car world for owning high-end vehicles, but his interest in Bugatti was something special. These are not normal cars. They are limited, extremely expensive, and carefully controlled by the manufacturer. Owning one is already rare, but owning multiple is almost unheard of. So when he started showing interest in adding another Bugatti to his collection, people in the automotive space started paying attention. He was not just looking for any car. He was aiming for something like the Bugatti Mistral, one of the rarest modern Bugatti models. From his perspective, the process probably seemed straightforward. If you have the money and you're already an existing customer, you expect that the process will move forward. In most industries, that would be true, but Bugatti operates differently. Their cars are not just products. They are part of a brand identity that is carefully managed. This means that even if a buyer is wealthy enough, they still may not always be the right fit for the next purchase. That idea surprises many people who are not familiar with this level of luxury branding. Reports and discussions around the situation suggest that AlexG made direct contact and showed serious interest in completing the purchase. Everything seemed ready from his side, but instead of moving forward quickly, there was hesitation from the manufacturer's side, and that hesitation eventually turned into a full stop. It was not about lack of money or availability in the simple sense. It was more about internal decision-making and brand direction. That is where the story becomes more interesting, because it shows that in this world, access is not always guaranteed, even for people who seem fully qualified on paper. This moment is important because it sets the emotional tone for everything that follows. It creates a quiet tension, a situation where something is clearly not going forward, but the reasons are not fully explained publicly. That kind of silence often creates more speculation than answers. And in this case, it becomes the first major turning point in a chain of events that no one could fully predict at the time. When Bugatti reportedly stopped or slowed down the process of selling another car to AlexG, people began to talk about what that really meant. On the surface, it might look like a simple business decision. Every brand has a right to choose who they sell to, but in the world of hypercars, things are more emotional and more symbolic. These cars are not mass-produced. They are carefully assigned. They represent status not just of buyer, but also for the brand itself. This is where the idea of fit becomes important. Even if a buyer has owned Bugatti vehicles before, it does not automatically guarantee access to every future model. Brands at this level often think about long-term image. They consider how their cars are represented in public, online, and in media. They also think about how ownership aligns with the identity they want to project. So when a purchase does not move forward, it is not always about one clear reason. It can be a mix of internal decisions, timing, and brand direction. For outsiders, this can feel confusing or even unfair. If someone can afford a car, why should they be blocked from buying it? But luxury branding does not always work on pure transaction logic. Instead, it works on exclusivity, reputation, and control over distribution. That control is part of what keeps the brand at the very top of the automotive world. I end this story. That control becomes the first invisible wall. It separates what looks like a normal purchase attempt from something more complicated. And even though no public conflict is confirmed, the situation creates a sense of distance between buyer and brand. That distance later becomes important because it forms a background tension for everything that follows, including the crash and the rebuild that brings Mat Armstrong into the picture. At this stage, nothing dramatic has physically happened yet, but the emotional foundation of the story has already changed after the attempted purchase situation. The story takes a sudden turn when one of FXAlexG's Bugatti vehicles is involved in a crash. This is the moment where everything shifts from discussion and negotiation into real physical damage. A Bugatti is not just any car. It is a highly engineered machine made with extreme precision. When something like that is damaged, it is not a simple repair job. It becomes a major technical challenge. The crash changes the entire direction of the story because it removes the car from its controlled environment. Instead of being a factory-maintained hypercar, it becomes a damaged project sitting outside that system. Once that happens, the rules change completely. The car is no longer protected by the same structure it was designed for. It becomes something that can be worked on, studied, and rebuilt by specialists outside the manufacturer. This is also the point where public attention starts to grow. People in the automotive community begin to see the situation not just as an accident, but as an opportunity to watch something extremely rare, a Bugatti being rebuilt outside of factory conditions. That alone is enough to attract interest. But what makes it even more engaging is who gets involved next, because this is where Mat Armstrong enters the story. Known for rebuilding high-end and heavily damaged performance cars, he is not someone who avoids difficult projects. In fact, he is known for taking on challenges that most people would consider too complex or too expensive to attempt. A Bugatti Chiron rebuild is at a completely different level compared to normal supercar projects. It requires deep understanding, creativity, and problem-solving that goes beyond standard repair work. At this point, the story is no longer just about ownership or rejection. It becomes about transformation. A damaged machine is about to be brought back to life, and the entire process is going to be visible to the public.